Come on. Hey everybody, JD here. Welcome to episode, what was it, 13? God, I can't even remember anymore. Fish with JD TV, and we're going to get to it really quick here because we got a lot to cover tonight. First off, we just finished the Douglas Rod contest, and we have a winner, and he doesn't appear to have shown up. So we will we'll see if we can get Pat on here real quick. Pat Young won the contest, but in the meantime, we're going to have Big Fred Kintawi, the Douglas Rod designer, on. There he is, big boy. And
hello.
Also known as guest numero uno for the show this week and historically. So I don't know what happened to Pat. So Pat won the rod, and it was a random drawing, and we were going to have Pat on here, and we got some pictures of Pat. I mean, we could do that. So there's Pat. We were going to sit here and tell him or suggest to him which Douglas rod he should choose. And apparently Pat likes to fly fish, and he likes to catch smallmouth, and he likes to catch brown trout. And so anyway, well, Pat, congratulations on winning the rod. Sorry you're not here. We missed you. It's going to be fun to talk to him because you go way back. It's weird. You go way back with him. I have just kind of missed, once we started emailing after I told him he won, we've been he and I have sort of done this for years, but never run into each other. So it would have been, wait, hold on. He's checking in here. This might work.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Pat,
no way.
Drum roll, please.
Wow.
Yes, we were just about ready to kiss you off there, Pat. You made it.
Well, I just got your email while I was fixing dinner here, and I thought, it's about time. I didn't know if you were going to call me or what. So.
Oh, sorry. We got.
I didn't understand that.
It's always a gong show. Don't worry about it. It's perfect. So, the man sitting next to me here.
Yeah, I recognize that face.
So
we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, and I was just talking about how you and I have this sort of almost parallel history that's intersected, but we've never actually run into each other. From the Western Outdoor News days.
Well, you were mentioning that we probably should have run each other 100 times here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and going way back to the Don Lee, the old Ranger boat rep that I knew and you knew and Fred knew, and then I just found out today. How do I not know this? As the vice president of the Guides Association, you've been working with the president, James Stone, on all this aquatic stuff in the Delta. So I mean, it's like literally we've just missed each other. So it's very nice to finally see a sort of quasi person here. So. So, Pat, you won an LRS rod from Douglas Outdoors, which is pretty cool. And we brought in the expert over here. No, it's over that way. These reverse camera things just mess me up so bad. But let's see if we can't pick you out a rod.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, the audio's bad, huh? I think it's your connection is what it is. So maybe we'll do this offline. Can you not hear us at all? I think Pat's got a bad connection. So
it's a short connection, that's for sure. Yeah. But we can still see him.
Better than a short fuse. But so if you can hear us, Pat, we will get in touch with you and we can do this offline. We just wanted to say congratulations on your big victory, and Fred can help you pick out the rod of your choice offline. So anyway, if you can hear us, we'll bid you adieu. Nice having you. It's hard to. Maybe you can hear us. No. All right. Well, everybody, Pat Young. So
yeah, that's a cool connection because I've known Don Lee or knew Don Lee. He's passed away since I was a child.
Right.
And when I went to before I ever went to work for him, I knew a bunch of guys, Craig Brawley, Pat Young, Taffa Dallas, a bunch of guys that we all ended up, working with and for Don Lee and Associates long time ago. Right. But and then you obviously on your first year of guiding went with Don Lee. So that's all cool. So full circle, 30 some odd years later, here we go.
So I assume Pat, he's gonna probably already have a rod picked out, but it would have been fun to help him choose it. So
just give him my phone number if and then we can connect.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll do that. And so anyway, well, we'll move on to the hot topic. And I don't know if you know much about this, but there's an assembly bill, AB 3030 out there that's kind of shaking things up. And we're going to get to some guests here and sort of get to the bottom of this. So people, I see you guys are commenting already, so we'll get to the questions for sure. But we are going to go, and I'm going to drop you out, big boy. So thanks for tuning in and being here, and we'll get with Pat another time. And thanks to Douglas for the connection and the hookup on that.
Yeah, DouglasOutdoors.com. We'll see you in a bit. I look forward to the show.
Best rods on the planet. Thank you. We'll see you later. And now we're going to bring in Aoibheann Cline from the Congressional Sportsmen's Federation, or is it Foundation? I can never get those right. Let's get her on here. Federation or Foundation?
Foundation.
Foundation. And we'll add to that Mr. Mark Smith of the Smith Policy Group, who's also works with us on the Norcal Guides and Sportsmen's Association. Mark, welcome.
What's up, JD?
Just chilling, living the good life in Tahoe.
I'm a little bummed that Pat got on because I thought you were going to have a rod for me there for a little while.
Yeah. So, well, let's just get to it. Tell you want to start, Aoibheann, with this AB 3030 and what it's all about, because people are. I feel like it's kind of sneaking in the back door a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right, JD. So we'll start with a little bit of background on this bill. AB 3030 was introduced by Assemblyman Colra, and it's out of San Jose. And the goal of this bill is to protect 30% of lands and waters by the year 2030. 30 by 30 is not a new initiative. It's actually part of a larger global initiative started by the United Nations and some other groups who have signed on to say, hey, we need to look at our natural resources and make sure we're conserving them for future generations to come. So hence AB 3030 was born. And while this bill aims to protect lands and waters, AB 3030 in California seems to miss the mark. Sportsmen and women, hunters, anglers, we're the first people to step up for conserving our natural resources through license revenue, the American System of Conservation funding, and making sure that we have the opportunities to fish and hunt for generations and generations and generations to come. However, this bill seems to be a little bit less of a conservation bill and more of a preservation bill. And those are things that we just can't get behind. So AB 3030 was born, the sportsmen's community watched it. Of course, this is a notion, like I said, that we all support, but the way that it's gone about is just not achieving the goals that the sportsmen's community would like to see. We think that through the initiatives in this bill would actually lead to more hunting and fishing closures due to its broad, sweeping language.
Interesting. So, oops, where'd you guys go? There you are. Yeah, it like you said, I think it's something that the general concept we can all get behind. I mean, we don't want to see the whole, all rivers dammed and duck blinds paved over and all that. I mean, we want to preserve stuff, but It sounds like, is it just that there's not a specific language? They're just kind of saying, kind of being a little fuzzy on the details. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, so technically in the language of the bill, it doesn't say we're closing hunting and fishing. But due to the broad sweeping nature of the bill and the fact that what protect 30% of lands and waters means has not been defined, we've got a problem with that. And myself, on behalf of CSF, Mark, on behalf of his clients, and the sportsman's community in general, we've sat down with the author of this bill and the proponents of this bill to say, here are our concerns from the very beginning of this through its first house, and said, here are our concerns, the proposed amendments we would like to see in order for us to get behind this bill. But the bill in its current state raises a lot of red flags, and it should raise red flags not only for hunters, not only for anglers, but all outdoor recreation participants.
Mark, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I have to agree with everything that Aoibheann has said. From the perspective of the recreational saltwater angling community, I think one of the real big concerns with the bill is that it would potentially create an environment where additional marine protected areas would be considered off of our coastline. And for those of you that were around a decade or so ago when we first had this conversation, I mean, a lot of the conversation was about whether or not access for recreational angling would be allowed in those areas. And so the bill was specifically amended coming out of the fiscal committee to actually reference MPAs and to provide for an analysis of those MPAs and to say that if they're not good enough, then we should consider complementary alternatives going forward, right? So this is both a problem on the ocean and on land. And we don't think that these things are incompatible with each other. When you think about it, it really is sportsmen and women who provide the majority of funding for conservation and natural resources investments through the purchases of their hunting and fishing licenses. And so these are entirely compatible activities, and we want to make sure that the bill speaks to that compatibility going forward.
Sounds good. Wow, my camera fell down. There we go. Yeah, like I said, it's always fun here. So what can we do? What's next here? What's on the docket, the agenda? What are you, especially with Congressional Sportsmen's, what are we up to here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're continuing to work and sit down with the author's office. We're continuing to work with the proponents to see if we can't, in good faith, negotiate the amendments that we would like to see. We're, continuing through that process. We'll see how successful that is. But as Mark said, the amendments that we saw that came out of the fiscal committee before it passed the assembly in a very swift, fast vote, were concerning. We'd offered these amendments. We talked about what conservation meant to us versus preservation and what we thought this bill could be interpreted to mean. And the amendments that we saw come out of the Appropriations Committee or the Fiscal Committee pointed to marine protected areas. And in California, marine protected areas, when managed by the state, are no take, no fish zones. Right. So they added in language to say, hey, we're pointing to this as a model for how we can achieve the goals of this bill. So we know there's no take, no fish off the coast. If that is now applied to inland fisheries or to terrestrial land and hunting opportunities, all that we see is a potential for future closures. Although it doesn't state that, the language and the history of the Marine Life Protection Act and the MPA process shows us that can be exactly what will happen.
Yeah, and for my part, JD, and one of the other things that's happening, this is getting the focus of national organizations, in part because California tends to be a leader when it comes to introducing legislation like this. And so you see it in California first, and then you see it in other places. So think about all the other coastal states in the country who could have a 30 by 30 bill introduced. And so what that means is, in addition to groups like Norcal Guides and Sportsmen's Association, you're a board member of and that I lobby for, and CCA California, which is the state's largest saltwater recreational fishing association, in addition to that, we're bringing in national firepower from the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, from the American Sport Fishing Association, from the National Marine Manufacturers, from a whole variety of organizations that see this as a focal point of engagement, because what happens here, as I previously said, tends to happen in other places. So there's a robust coalition of people that are forming behind this notion that we need to more clearly define what the bill says and what the sponsors of the bill's intent is. And I think that we're going to be well positioned to go forward and have a dialogue with those sponsors and hopefully reach an ecumenical resolution.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so let's
I'll
get
add
into
to that, Mark. I think that what I've seen on this bill and in the engagement and the growing coalition in California is something that, you know, is almost unprecedented in how well this sportsman's community in such a short amount of time has come together to say, we've got these concerns, and maybe they don't match all the way across the board, but that we're working together. We're reaching out to our legislators, to our Sportsmen's Caucus leaders, and saying, hey, we've got concerns with this bill, and we would like to see them addressed. You know, it's not that we don't support protecting 30% of our lands and waters, but what does that mean? Simply tell us, is this adding 30% more to what's already protected? And California has arguably some of the most stringent in the world.
Right.
And we haven't gotten that answer yet, but I do commend the sportsmen's community and the activism that I've seen around this, and coming together and saying that we've got concerns and we want this addressed. And hunting and fishing is important to all of us, and public access is something that every single Californian should be concerned with.
It's a good point. Depending upon how you define protection, we've already met these goals. And I want your viewers to take into consideration, you know, the fact that nearly 70% of the land in the state of California is already protected in some way, shape, or form. It's owned by the state, it's owned by the feds, by the BLM, by a variety of different organizations. And so we're really only, what we're doing with this bill is we're fighting over the last remaining little vestiges of opportunity, and much of that is private land. And we want to keep that land accessible. So anyway, this is your show, not ours. Maybe we should let you say something every once in a while.
No, it's fine. No, you guys are the experts on this. I was just I wanted to get back to one of the things that Aoibheann said was that kind of caught my ear was we're more interested. We're into conservation and the preservation parts, the part that's a little scary, right? So the behind this bill, and this thing's like a huge global initiative kind of thing, right? I mean, it's or a movement or whatever you want to call it, but there's some billionaire guy in Norway, Sweden, somewhere that's kind of the guy out in front of this whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the Weiss Foundation, Swiss philanthropist who actually came out west and in an interview stated he fell in love with the natural resources of the West in California and the United States. He said he wants it to be his goal to protect that land and the resources for generations to come and for them to also enjoy. And, I don't believe that it's the intent of that kind of backing in this grant and the money that's behind it to be exclusive and prohibit people and be this protectionist kind of mindset. But the bill in California has taken on a life of its own. It's really become an environmental preservation bill. Don't touch it. Let's let our natural resources exist on their own in their own state, rather than active fisheries and wildlife management based on the best available science.
Sure. And one of you guys pointed out too that something that rings so true, that hunters and anglers are the greatest conservationists of them all. And I know that's hard for maybe an anti-hunter or fisher to understand, but without people like all of us, if there's a steelhead run in a little creek that's going away, nobody's going to know it unless there's anglers fishing it, or there's nobody's going to know that the pheasants in the Sacramento Valley have gone away because all the parking lots have been built if people weren't out there hunting. And you look at who spends all the money on conservation. You just go down the list: Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and ducks unlimited, cow waterfowl, trout unlimited, on and on and on. I mean, it's all of us that participate in these sports that actually are doing that. So if you exclude that group of people, then you're losing a huge resource, I would think. So
you are. Hey, I figured out how to look at your live comments stream, and
yeah, we're gonna
Elizabeth Healy is asking some pretty great questions here.
All right,
you know, we have offered amendments to the bill.
Hang on, let me pop
just,
that up so people can see. Is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have offered amendments to the bill. We just don't happen to have gotten a response from the sponsors yet, and I think that has us concerned, right? I feel like we're being stonewalled. The legislative process is shortened and condensed even beyond its usual short, condensed timeline because they went away. They went home for 2 months because of COVID, because we were all staying at home, right? So, Elizabeth, you're asking great questions. You want to know where Senator Dodd's position on the bill is. You know, we haven't had a chance to talk to Senator Dodd about this yet, but he's definitely on our radar. And then you notice that the assembly votes were pretty partisan. I would take a closer look. We got 2 Democrats to vote no. We got a number of moderate Democrats and others to not vote on the bill. And we did that with 2 hands tied behind our back because the lobbying process in the Capitol right now is extremely curtailed, to put it best, right? Like, legislative staff is not in their offices. You've got to do everything over the phone. So even in the time that we worked this measure for 3 hours, we were able to have that kind of an outcome in the assembly. So I think we're going to have an impact with our proposal, our perspective in the Senate. Gabe is asking who's the sponsor of the bill. Gabe, the sponsors of the bill are the Natural Resources Defense Council, the Defenders of Wildlife, Audubon, California, and Azul, which is a Latino coalition dedicated to ocean protection.
Hey, Mark, going back to one of Elizabeth's previous comments about Senator Dodd's position, and as you stated, we do not know that yet. In a late development today, I was actually able to get in and have one of those phone conversations you just mentioned with Senator Dodd's office, and they're reviewing the concerns of the sportsmen's community. Senator Dodd is a great champion for sportsmen. He is the Democratic co-chair, Senate co-chair for the Sportsmen's Caucus here in California, and this is on their radar, and they're reviewing actively right now.
Cool.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Oshkalra is the author of the bill. We distinguish in the business between the authors and the sponsors. So usually interest groups such as ours sometimes, or others in this case, will bring a bill proposal to an elected official and ask him to introduce it as a bill. So Kalra is the author, and the sponsors are the groups I previously mentioned.
Okay, cool. So I guess the next logical question is, what, as just, the Jane Q. Public can we do to help support this cause, to maybe make sure this doesn't go as they are planning it?
Yeah, so one thing that we can do, or the general public can do, concerned with this bill is, a partner organization that Mark mentioned earlier, the American Sport Fishing Association. They have a platform, Keep America Fishing. And through that platform, they have an active voter voice advocacy deal. You can go on, enter in your zip code. It'll direct you to your senator, and you can send a pre-populated, or you can add on to that email saying, we voiced these concerns over AB 3030, and we want to make sure that hunting and fishing are as compatible conservation activities as we move forward.
Yeah, great. And that, do you know, they are asa.org or something? I'm not.
Yeah, their platform where you can do advocacy is through Keep America Fishing.
Okay, great. So now, do you guys have anything more on AB 3030 before we start talking stripers? Anything else you want to throw in there, Mark?
No, I don't think so. Guys, I got some feedback that my microphone was kind of distorted, so I switched to a different one. Let me know if that's any better.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Let's switch to the next big topic of the day, which is stripers.
Right.
JD, if I can, I would add just one brief comment, and I know this is something that Mark is very aware of, and we briefly mentioned, is AB 3030 is part of this global initiative, and it's backed by the Weiss Foundation. But this is something that we've seen in California, and we're starting to see across the country. We've already seen a 30 by 30 bill introduced in South Carolina. We've seen a 30 by 30 marine protection bill introduced in Hawaii. And we've seen another House resolution in the Midwest. So we fully expect that this bill will continue popping up across the country. And as we mentioned, this is something the sportsman's community can truly get behind as long as it's presented correctly and our priorities are incorporated within that bill, and that, you know, the future bills of 30 by 30 look like conservation and ensuring access opportunities for hunting and fishing for years to come.
Great. Real quick here, let me show this. Danielle from ASA chimed in, and keepamericafishing.org.
Thanks, Danielle.
So go to that if you want to know more. And you know what's cool about ASA too is there's some really interesting stats on there about the economic impacts of fishing. So it'll blow your mind. Some of the, you know, it's bigger than golf and tennis combined, I think I read on there once, and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. So that's just a little side note. But okay, so are we AB 3030'd out at this point? Actually, real quick, where would be the best place for people to keep up on this? Would it be your guys' website, Aoibheann, or where, you know, if you want to kind of keep tabs on things, because some of these things are, you know, just again for the general public that aren't in the business. Where do you find this info to kind of?
Yeah, of course, there's a large coalition. Almost every sportsman's group is engaging on this, but I can tell you, just because I represent the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, you can follow us and find out more information on the congressionalsportsmans.org. Through there, you can sign up for our weekly publication called The Sportsman's Voice, where anytime there's going to be an update on AB 3030, you'll see an article from me. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to get live updates.
Okay, cool. Excellent. And what about smithpolicygroup.com? Is there anything on there, Mark?
Now it's a boring website. You don't want to go there.
Okay.
In all seriousness, that's not the place where we're posting live updates about what's happening with the bill. But my contact information is there, and because I don't know. I mean, because I'm trying to help run and manage the coalitions here in California. If people are interested and want to get information, my contact information is there, and you can contact me directly. You can also go through Norcal Guides and Sportsmen. You can contact JD. AV is a good conduit as well. So thanks, folks.
Yeah, good deal. So, all right, moving on. There is a petition moving around right now to, and I think long overdue in California, to put a slot limit on striped bass. Now, this is a little bit of a hot button topic, because you're going to get people who say striped bass should all be wiped out because they are the non-native apex predator that are wiping out the salmon. And, you know, I could get on a soapbox on that for days and days and days. But my kind of final answer on that is, if you look at the health of the salmon population in California, you look at striped bass, delta smell, I mean, everything's trending downward, right? So if you had a situation where striped bass numbers were doing this and salmon were going down, I would say maybe there's an argument there. And don't get me wrong, striped bass, without a doubt, I've seen it a million times, eat baby salmon. There's no question. That is a fact. But we start going into down a dangerous road when we consider wiping out the striped bass, not only from an economic standpoint, because they're kind of every man's fish in the Delta, the Bay, the river systems. They provide a huge recreation base for folks. But also, if you say, okay, striped bass are the enemy, guess what? The next thing is, oh, well, we got rid of striped bass. Smallmouth bass eat a lot of baby salmon. Oh, channel catfish, brown trout. I mean, you just go down the line, and when does it stop? We're going to wipe out everything. We're going to eradicate, and you couldn't do it anyway. To eradicate the striped bass in the Delta system, I mean, right now you could go catch a striped bass in Redding, California, and all the way down to Big Sur, California, and all points in between right at this very moment. So, and then there's the whole, here we go. I opened the can of worms. Sorry, everybody. But the sort of idea of unintended consequences. So you get rid of striped bass, just say you could. And then guess what? Some other predator fills in. And we don't know that striped bass don't curb the numbers of squawfish to a manageable level. We don't know that. I mean, you get rid of striped bass, maybe squawfish become worse for salmon. So again, it all gets back to water and environment and habitat. Everything's trending downward, and that to me points to a much larger picture. With that said, so we're going to go into the benefits of striped bass. And one of the things that we've been talking about, we being the angling community, and more specifically the Norcal Guides and Sportsmen Association has really been involved in this. You look at the East Coast, they had a collapsed striper fishery. They implemented not just a slot limit, but that was kind of the chief thing that they did that really brought their runs back. And so we are looking at that right now. And we'll bring everybody back in here and kind of get the latest. So go ahead, Mark. What's the, after I got off my soapbox, I got to drink.
So I think I just want to go back and set the stage just a little bit more. Aoibheann's organization, Norcal Guides, others, California Striped Bass, we really went through a pitched battle over the last year with an effort at the Fish and Game Commission to repeal the 1996 striped bass policy, which actually called for a goal of 1.1 million fish in the system, up to 3 million fish. And as you mentioned, JD, stripers and salmon have been crashing in tandem with each other. Cold water anadromous species, the impacts in the Delta environment and in the Sacramento system together are impacting both of those species. The vast majority of science out there definitively shows that predation by bass is not a defining or limiting factor in smolt success and mortality related to salmon populations. So we know that the argument that bass have to be removed because they're predators is a fallacious one, and you mentioned a couple of reasons why. So we went through this process at the Fish and Game Commission, and basically what we were told is we're not going to manage striped bass. They're a non-native species, and we have other higher priorities, including native species and listed species. So a couple runs of salmon and some other species that are a higher priority. And frankly, the department doesn't have the funding and the resources to invest in striped bass. So we as a community looked at ourselves and said, what can we do that will improve the bass population that won't require a lot of money for management? And what we have come up with is a slot limit. So for those of your viewers who are not familiar with a slot limit, we are proposing that there would be a band, say 20 to 30 inches, where allowable harvest would occur, but you wouldn't be allowed to take anything up to 20 inches, and you wouldn't be allowed to take anything above 30 inches. The reasons for that are twofold. One, sexual maturity in female striped bass really doesn't occur until the 5th or 6th year, which is about the 20 to 24 inch size range. Second, the most mature and sexually reproductive females are those that are above 30. So we want to set a target limit where we would harvest fish after allowing them to reach a certain sexual maturity and help to promote and stabilize populations, and then protect the big fish from being removed from the system. Now, I recognize that some people are going to look at this and think to themselves, well, I go out and I catch 18-inch stripers all the time, and this is going to impact my recreational opportunity. And to that we say, yes, we understand that, and we anticipate that in at least the first year, opportunity is going to be constrained. But we think that in the long run, the health and well-being of the population is the most imperative thing, and that we will be providing more opportunity for generations to come with a little bit of sacrifice up front. There are those who would tell you that arguably we should not be taking them out until they're 24 inches. I think that 20 inches is a good compromise, going from 18 to 20, and then potentially revisiting this in 3 to 4 years to see what kind of an impact we're having and whether or not we need to make another adjustment. But at the end of the day, the goal here is not to limit the recreational opportunity, but to provide for the long-term supply and stability of the species and to promote and maintain this recreational treasure that we have in the state of California. Because when you think about it, 2 of the top 5 reasons that people come fish here in California, if they're not from here, and the people that are here, is they want to go after bass in the Delta and they want to go after stripers in the Sacramento system.
Right. Very well said. And one of the things you said was the first year we would lose some opportunity. And that, to clarify, because you couldn't keep those smaller fish, those 18 inches that everybody's so used to keeping right now, doesn't mean you still can't fish. I mean, you can still fish. So you're not actually, you're losing maybe some opportunity to bonk some fish on the head. But let's be honest here, folks. One 18-inch striper gives you a fillet about that big. It's like literally a fish taco, one fish taco, maybe per side. But so really in the big scheme of things, to give a little here at the beginning is going to pay off so much in the long term. And one of the things I tell, this is the layman's version that I tell people when they get on the boat. I usually have it's kind of a non-specific policy on the boat, but I just say, if we get one over 8 or 10 pounds, that's probably a female. There aren't that many of those. Let's just let that go. And people say, and most people just say, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. But if I need to explain a little more, I'll say, hey, in this state, the striped bass is kind of a lost fish. The Fish and Wildlife Department, like you said, Mark, doesn't have the time or the money to deal with them right now. They're in an awkward spot, and I understand that because they are an apex predator, non-native, that it's feeding on some endangered species. So they're in a tight spot. I totally get that, and so because of that, all that, they don't really have they're not doing anything with striped bass. So I always tell people, hey, if you want to fish for striped bass in the future, if you want your kids and your grandkids to fish for striped bass, it's on us right now. And so that's kind of the same sentiment we need to have with this whole slot limit thing if it should go through. Yes, you're going to have to give a little right now, but in the long run, we could have phenomenal striped bass fishing if this all works out. So
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that, what you get is you're going to have a couple more shakers. You're not going to lose the thrill of going out there and having a striped bass slam that lure and run on you and fight that fish for a couple minutes, right? You just might have a couple more shakers. And for those of your listeners that were trying to get out on the river, COVID coincided with the striped bass season this year, right? And so most of the guides that were running bass in the March to May timeframe weren't going out, right? And so we don't know yet what the effects of that are on the population. But if you think about it, we pretty much gave them a year off, other than the people that were like riverbank fishing. So maybe we can build on this and help improve the populations.
Right. So I suppose we ought to mention the app and the study that we're kind of embarking on here. And we again, as the Norcal Guides and Sportsmen, are part of this coalition of trying to get the striped bass numbers back up. And we got a biologist, Cynthia Ledoux-Bloom, and David Ostrak was also involved, both doctors of fishery stuff. And they've created an app for us to, we're gonna use it this year, but we didn't get a chance to fish. I for one didn't do a single striper trip all year, which was financially and emotionally difficult, but that's another story. But I was also excited to get out there and use this app. And the app was to help us record location, size, sex, if possible, and get all this data on the striper population. And the smart people put it in the machine and run the numbers, and then you can start to look at trends, and that helps guide the management and hopefully provides some sort of data for that 20 to 30 inch slot limit too. I kind of got that right, Mark?
No, you hit it pretty square on. I mean, we're developing an app that is going to allow for data collection by the guides primarily who are out in the field with their clients. So the app will geotag the location that the fish was caught. It allows you to take a photograph. We produce these nice high quality measuring sticks I'll use for a lack of a better word, that have clearly delineated markers on them so that we can capture the accurate size of the fish. And what we want to do with that data is build some science behind the slot limit, and in all honesty, to help the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We said earlier, the Department of Fish and Wildlife doesn't have a fisheries management plan for the species. They have no interest in doing the research. Let me take that back. There may be an interest in doing the research, but they don't have the funding to go out and do it in addition to all the other priorities that they have. And so we as a community feel like we need to do two things. We need to propose a solution, and then we need to back that up with data. So that's what this is all about. We're going to roll that tool out to professional guides like yourself, and we're going to really capture the data through those points. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. We got about 10 people using it in the field right now, but it's been fairly limited because we really didn't have a striper season.
Right.
Yeah, and JD, I think it's important to go back to the background on this, and as Mark alluded to, the fight that we just spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on in the Fish and Game Commission was updating the striped bass policy. That was 1996. And if you look back, it was the only fisheries management policy from CDFW that had population requirements. And it had, year timeframes we need to check in. That wasn't kept up. And the department wasn't held accountable to that. And so we lacked the science to say where striped bass are on the Delta. And that's a concern. And so a lot of people may say that, the slot limit is this arbitrary without, is this just a guess? And we're trying to guess biomass and populations. But this tool, this app, is a way to help CDFW in trying to gather that information that we've been lacking for so long, that we can then use to propel, a future management strategy. If this can be a catalyst for a management strategy and a management plan that currently doesn't exist, because there's not a management plan for striped bass because it was in the policy. And so this circular argument has gone on. We've tried to straighten it out and make this a more efficient process for the commission, acknowledging the lack of funding and the increased struggles that COVID are going to present for the department, that this is a really unique tool and another example of anglers and the sportsman's community stepping up, saying we are the #1 stewards of our natural resources, and we care about these fish more than anybody. So
what was cool,
JD, really quick, I see a question from James, and James is saying, if catching a striped bass at 18 inches is allowed, what's the maximum length? So right now, James, it's 18 or over. So again, what the slot limit would propose to do is say you can keep anything between 20 and 30. Yep. And that's at least the proposal on the table. And as we look at this going forward, that might be adjusted in one direction or another. But right now, 18 or over, you can keep it. And the slot limit would basically say you keep anything between 20 and 30.
And as you mentioned, JD, that those bigger fish, those bigger stripers are often the females.
Sure. And those are the future, obviously. And what's exciting to me about all this is you might need to mute your thing there, Marky. I'm hearing an echo. There we go. Thanks. Is the fact that when we sort of brought this up to Fish and Game and Stafford Lair, who's way up at the top of the heap there, he got excited and he said, this is great. I love citizen science. Let's it wasn't just an immediate no, which kind of sort of almost feels like is just what you're going to get. And so the department was open to it. And I think it's great. I mean, it'd be great to get a bunch of programs like this where we are, providing them the manpower in effect that they don't have. And so I think that the fact that the department's, at least thumbs up on the app part, and we'll see how the petition goes as far as the slot limit goes. But they're definitely in the conversation and they're open to new ideas, which I think is really great and helpful when you have a department that's willing to do some stuff with you. So, Mark, where are we at on that? I know the petition is been petition, for lack of a better word, moving forward. But where is it?
It's in front of the Fish and Game Commission, and it's going to be heard and discussed on. Oh, I got a visitor in the background of my screen there. That's my wannabe duck dog. She's still got to go through some training. The petition is going to be discussed in front of the Fish and Game Commission on June 25th.
And have you had any conversations with any of those folks to just kind of take their temperature at all, or is it too soon on that?
Yeah, no, we have. And I think that, you mentioned Stafford, and he's an outdoor enthusiast himself. And, I think that he's interested in at least having a conversation about this moving forward. So I don't want to presuppose what the commission is doing, but the commission is conducting all of their activities in a remote manner right now. So anybody who's listening, anybody who wants to can log onto their webpage and get the access phone number and participate. So you don't have to come down to Sacramento. You can just simply call in on your phone and you can voice support for a proposal like this. And we're going to be there talking about it. And hopefully the commission decides they're not going to adopt this as policy at this upcoming hearing, but they're going to say, yeah, this is, hopefully say this is a worthwhile idea. Let's take it forward. Let's study it. And then let's come back and make a determination on this at a later point in time.
Yeah, so it's nice to have something at least feel like it's moving forward a little bit. It's I don't know. It's been, for people who don't know, we used to have striped bass hatcheries in this state. I mean, it was a whole just full bore producing of striped bass. It was, and now we've gone completely other way. So it's pretty exciting to think that, maybe we have a chance to sort of affect some change and move in the right direction. Here we have some more comments here. Ron Kelly, not only are the 30+ inch fish big breeders, they also high level mercury. Take a picture and let it go. Absolutely. Yeah, that's an issue with striped bass for sure. The apex predator definitely accrues some toxicity stuff, but and then Ron, you're saying striped bass stamp too. I'm not sure what specifically he's talking about there. We used to have this.
Well, we used to have a striped bass stamp. That was part of the original 1996 policy and the framework that went forward. I mean, we were going to have net pens for these. We were going to have striped bass hatcheries. We were going to invest all this money, and that never ended up happening. I think it's one bridge too far for us to go right now to talk about re-implementing a striped bass stamp, but I found that the fishing and hunting community is more than willing to reach into its own pocket to provide for opportunity for itself in the long run. It's not the preferred solution, and it should not be the default go-to solution for every problem. But, as we explore this and go down this road, I mean, there are some that want to talk about that. I just don't think we're right there at this particular time. But Ron, if you want to make a donation, I'm sure James Stone would take a check. So, you can feel free to put that money in a place where it's going to do some good.
Absolutely, for sure. Aoibheann, looked like you were about to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that was a funny comment. But I was going to say something that, Mark touched on is COVID has created this really interesting dynamic in public participation, not only at the commission level, but at the legislative level. And it's never been easier to use your voice, use your vote, and talk about a bill in a committee. All you got to do is get on a phone and say, hey, I oppose this bill. I oppose AB 3030, or, I oppose AB 3030 because it doesn't do this, or I support this striped bass slot limit because of X, Y, and Z. You can do that from the comfort of your couch, in your loungewear. You don't have to be in a suit and know the ins and the outs and the policies and the procedures of going into a building, spending your time down in downtown Sacramento, paying for parking, you name it, kind of that big, scary stage. It's never been easier to have your voice heard as an angler or a sportsman or a hunter in general. So it's an encouraging time to see. And I think if we can get that level of engagement increased, we're going to really be able to advance some great sportsman's policies.
That's a great point.
We saw that recently when the state was considering closing parts of the recreational fishing season. They held a webcast and it got crashed. We had 600 people on the phone lines and 400 people on the webcast, and they somehow lost the ability to mute the public, which was, I mean, think about 600 people in an auditorium all trying to talk at once, except you're behind your phone and you're anonymous and you can say whatever you want. I mean, it was, for lack of a better word, it was a shit show. But what was great about it was that we don't often get the sportsman's voice, because there are very few of us that are paid professionals that are at the Capitol representing you. You all have jobs, you have businesses, you have other commitments, but this remote access is something that I hope will continue. Both Aoibheann and I have had the opportunity to be advocates in Alaska, and they've got this dialed in because that state is so big, you can't easily get from point A to point B. So they've had a teleconference system for legislative advocacy for years. California has not had that before. So I really hope that's one of the things that continues. And I really hope that sportsmen and women make their voices heard by calling in and telling legislators and appointed officials what they want to have happen with their natural resources.
Yeah, and Aoibheann, you said it right. I mean, I think anglers and sports people in general, we're a little apathetic. I mean, it's always like somebody else will go, to the meeting, and sometimes it's hard and to get people to these things. And lately we've been getting people to show, but one of the things is that it's just a pain. You got to take a day off work to go to a Fish and Game Commission meeting, and like you said, $15 to park or whatever, and you can't, if you're living in, Sutter County or something, and going to Sacramento is kind of a, for a lot of people coming out of the hills, it's sort of intimidating to come to the big city anyway, and then you got to try to figure this whole thing out. Then you got to stand up in front of everybody, and speak, and you got 3 minutes or a minute or whatever it is. So this way is great. Yeah, I'm with you, Mark, that hopefully they continue this whole process, because I think we're going to have a better voice. So let's see. Any other questions we have? Anybody else have any? Let's see. I'm scanning any other striped bass questions. I guess not. So anything else you guys want to add? I think we've covered a lot here.
When are you going to take me fishing in Tahoe?
Wait till I get my new boat. My new boat's almost here. Should be another week or so. We were out today, and the wind was howling, and in that open jet sled, we being me mostly, got really wet and cold, so standing in the back. So anytime, man, come on up, and you as well, Aoibheann. That'd be fun to have a little sort of work fun trip or whatever you want to call it. Here you go, Ron Kelly, good point. Join Norcal Guides and Sportsmen's Association, ncgasa.org. $20 a year. And people ask me all the time, hey, how can I help? And there's people that don't have the time to go to the meetings like we're talking about. Don't want to have a face. Oh, look at that. Oh, this is somebody.
Are you related to that person? Apparently, I needed to have my family members watching the show too. I'm not feeling the love right now.
But that threw me off. Where was I going with that? Oh, that people ask, what can I do? I don't want to have to go to a meeting. I don't have to speak. I don't want to have to take a day off work. Well, if you join a group like Norcal Guides and Sportsmen, it's $20 a year, like Ron said. And what's important, the thing that's most important now is we can't fight all this stuff with money. We can fight it with voices, masses. So if we go to a meeting and James Stone or Mark or whoever's representing us at that meeting says, I represent Norcal Guides and we have, 900 million members, then they have to listen to us. And that's really the best thing you can do. $20 a year. I mean, it's less than a spool of braided line. So anyway.
Yeah, JD, I think it's really important too, something that you'd alluded to earlier and on this line about joining an organization who can use their voice. And as Mark said, there's very few of us who are fortunate enough to get paid to do this, to advocate for the things that we do, week in, week out. Every weekend we're on the water or we're hunting in the fall. Is if you're sitting out on the water and you're complaining about it, you're already a year too late, right? We've got to get our sportsmen activated and involved in the process before this becomes a policy, before this law gets enacted. And we need folks engaged kind of on the grassroots level. And going back to that point, it's easier than ever to be a sportsman, to be a sportsman's advocate. And then I would say just one other thing. We talked about striped bass, but I think 30-30 is a good example to talk about the notion of, if not me now, me next. A lot of times, we've been very siloed in the sportsman's community, where our striped bass fishermen speak up for striped bass, and our waterfowl groups speak up for waterfowl, and Rocky Mountain elk for big game. And we've been chipping away at the sportsman's policies and the laws and the protections and the opportunities that we've had. So if we're out there complaining, we're already too late. We need to get involved, and we need to stick up as a sportsman's community, as a coalition together, not just for our one species target, but for everybody, because there is a group out there that's well organized and they're well funded, who are attacking our rights and opportunities to fish and hunt in the future. And we need to be there, and we need to rival them and step up to the plate.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, just so you know, oh wait, I hit the wrong button. You're awesome too. From Brian Ricucci. Now, he doesn't.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Have your same last name, so I think that one carries a little more weight, doesn't it?
Hell yeah, it does. I didn't pay him anything, regardless of what he says.
Yeah. So here we go. Got another comment real quick. Can the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation provide a list of federal and California legislators we can contact to support our industry? I imagine they can.
Yes, we can. We can do a number of things, point you in the right direction of not only your own legislator, but also who is a member of your caucus. Each state, or 49 out of 50 states, have a sportsman's caucus established, who are the legislators who self-identify as hunters and anglers and want to step up for your rights and your ability to hunt and fish. And then on Capitol Hill, we are the largest active bipartisan caucus with over 300 members of Congress in the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, standing up for your rights to hunt and fish. And it's never been more evident how much that they support us in Congress by passing of the Great American Outdoors Act today through the Senate.
Yeah.
Push that through the next House. It's a great day, so you can go to the congressionalsportsmans.org. We can point you to your legislator as well as your caucus members. One other feature that we do, if you are a legislative nerd like some of us, you can sign up for a free feature called, and Mark, you can sign up for a free feature that we offer called Tracking the Capitals. And you can put in the states you're interested in, the policy topics you're interested in, whether that's hunting, firearms, fishing, you name it. We've got a whole litany of things. You just check the box, and you'll get an email from us every week talking about the bills that you should be concerned about in your respective region.
Cool. Very cool. I was thinking Tracking the Capitals was a hockey thing, but I guess not. Hey, how about a West Coast guy knowing anything about hockey? How about that? So let's see. We have another comment here before we get out of here. Oh, it's just your man crush Ricucci saying tight lines. So anyway, anything else, you guys? We've kind of thrown a lot at people here, but I think it's great. And I think what's cool is for people, before I got involved with the Guides Association, I didn't know people like you guys even existed. And I think that's probably a common sort of trend in the just the general populace that, wow. And it's kind of, that's why I thought it would be great to have you guys on, to see that there's these people that are out there fighting for us, behind the scenes a lot of times without any sort of, pat on the back. It's a labor of love. And so I thank you guys so much for what you're doing. It's, and there's, we obviously need lots more, because we're typically outgunned in everything that we're up against, it seems like. But it's nice to know that there's some good people fighting the good fight out there for us, for sure. So, thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity, JD. I mean, we really only scratched the surface by talking about two issues, and I know this is your fishing show, but there's a whole host of topics to talk about out there, from waterfowl hunting to big game to, firearms. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and they all concern and affect the people who enjoy our traditional heritages of hunting and angling. So, hell, anytime you want to do this is great with me. And next time, let's not get Pat on the show. I want to get that rod myself. So where do I have to go to sign up for that chance to win a free rod?
Well, you got to watch the show. That's it.
I see.
We'll have some more giveaways, I think, coming up soon. So stay tuned. So anyway,
thank you for the opportunity, JD, to step on it and talk a little bit about what we're doing in California for Sportsmen. And, I'm a resource, Mark's a resource. We're plugged in, day out in this. So please, anybody watching, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Any resources we can provide.
Awesome. That's very nice. Thank you. And thank you both for coming on. And it was informative, and we'll do it again because like you say, Mark, there's plenty of stuff coming down the pike. We didn't even talk about the Truckee River trout thing or the new Trinity River steelhead proposal and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, we could do one of these probably every day of the week and not touch it all. So, but again, thank you both very much for coming on, and we will see you hopefully somewhere out fun fishing one of these days. So
thanks, JD.
Bye.
And nice having you on. So man, lot to sort of digest there, huh, folks? So great people doing a lot of good work for us, and I'm sure glad they're on our side because they are pretty sharp up here too. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, gosh, it's been an hour already. Holy smokes! I guess it's time to bid you all adieu. So thanks for tuning in. Again, this was episode 13. This whole thing started during the COVID, 13 weeks ago, which blows me away. But anyway, we're just going to keep rolling with it. So I'm always a procrastinator, so I don't know who next week's guest is, but I'm sure they will be very fascinating and interesting. And if not, you'll just be stuck with me. But anyway, so thanks for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. That's cool. It makes me feel good. So love that. So anyway, you guys have a good weekend, and we will see you next time.